Hi, I'm Steve Good and welcome to my scroll saw workshop. Tonight we're going to do a little bit of a review slash initial impression slash first look at the new JWSS-22B 22-inch scroll saw. This machine's not been on the market very long, and I've had a lot of requests for information about this machine. So I've got it in the shop, I've got it put together, and we're going to take a quick look at it tonight. This video is sponsored by Seyco. Seyco, the scroll saw specialists, they've been in business since 1986 with a goal to supply the best customer support and quality products available in the scroll saw industry. And any of you that have been around for any period of time in this hobby know about Ray and his incredible customer support over at Seyco. So if you get a chance, visit Seyco.com and take a look at some of the incredible products they have available. I did receive this saw from Seyco. That's where I got it. So this video will be sponsored by Seyco, and I want to thank them very much. One more quick note before we get started. Don't forget that this Friday night, which will be the 21st of October 2016, we're going to start our giveaway for the $75 gift certificate from Bear Woods. So make sure you check out the blog and click on the gift certificate to enter the contest, and with a little luck, maybe you'll be a winner. Okay, let's shut that down. And here is how the saw was received at my front door. Came by FedEx. Came in two boxes. The larger box, of course, is the saw, and it weighed in at right about 90 pounds. So this is a heavy beast. The box on top, of course, is a stand. I was a little surprised at how small that box was, considering it has to hold this big beast of a machine. But as you'll see here in a little bit, it worked out just fine. So I got the top of the box open, and you can see on the very top we've got the instruction manual, which, to be honest, I didn't even really look at much. I opened it up and thumbed through it and then just moved on. We also have a couple of accessory parts here in the top. And what I got from Seyco in this package, I did get the foot switch. This is the magnetic base light. Of course, the user manual. These are the leveling feet. 2 extra thumb screws, which are for the bottom clamp, and I'll be showing you that here in a few minutes. And this was a second dust port. There was already a dust port on the machine, and why they give you a second one, I wasn't sure. But anyway, I did get 2 of them. Moving on, once we get the top packing material off of the saw, this is what's underneath. It is totally assembled and, well, not totally assembled, but very close to it and ready to go. This box, or this machine, is very heavy, weighing in at 90 pounds. So I recommend you have some help to get it out of the box. You do not want to grab this saw by the upper arm. The recommended way to pick it up is to put your hand underneath the motor and underneath the table and lift it out of the box. And anytime you pick it up, that's how you should lift it. And again, you should probably get some help. I did it by myself, but it was heavy. This is the blade storage guide that goes on the left side of the saw, and it does not come assembled on the saw, so this is one of the few pieces you actually have to put on. Another reason I showed this is because this little hole right here becomes important for the bottom clamp, and I'll show you that when we get to it also. Okay, here's the saw up on my bench. I wanted to get it up high so I could get a good look at it. It does come wrapped in this plastic, and also the table has been lubricated up to keep it from rusting. So you'll see in here in a minute we have to get all that out. So you want to remove this styrofoam, get all the packing material off of it. And here you can see better how lubed up the tabletop is. And I used acetone to clean off the table. Worked pretty good. And here you can see I've got some gloves on, and I'm wiping it down with the acetone and a paper towel. cleaned up pretty well. I did notice after I got it cleaned up that the table was still just a little bit sticky, so I'll go back tomorrow when I have more time to get in the shop, and I'll probably put some paste wax on this table to make it a little smoother. You can also see that one of the first things I did is remove the blade guard. If you're new to the scroll saw, you may want to leave this blade guard on. Very few people actually do leave the blade guards on. The scroll saw is such a safe tool. I'm not saying that you can't get cut or you can't pinch your fingers, but the scroll saw is pretty much considered an ouch tool. You're not going to get more than an ouch out of it. You know, maybe a small cut on your finger, or more often than that, the wood will jump up and pinch your finger a little bit. So this blade guard will prevent that or help prevent it. So if you're uncomfortable with taking it off, you know, by all means leave it on. I've never used one on a scroll saw in my 30 years, so I always take them off. Okay, here you can see that I'm installing this blade storage rack and the, well, I'll call it a wrench. I guess that's what you would call it over here. And it did take a, I think I ended up using a 5/32 inch Allen, but I think it's actually metric, but it fit. So that's what I grabbed. And you can see I'm just installing it on the side of the machine. And again, this hole right here is very important. And like I said, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, here is the lower blade clamp, and this whole clamping system on this jet machine is totally different, and it's what I was most interested in with this saw, getting a chance to get my hands on it and see how I like this. And I'll give you more details on what I feel about it in the next video, and I'll just kind of go over the highlights in this one. This lower blade clamp actually clips into the lower arm with a little metal clip. And what you do, you know, normally if you are a bottom feeder, which I am, and which this machine is pretty well dedicated to being a bottom feeder. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that term, a bottom feeder means that you release the blade from the, let me back up. When you need to put the blade through an interior hole, you release the blade from the top clamp, raise up the upper arm, and you pass the blade through the bottom of the board up through the hole for the interior cut, and then you reclamp it into the top clamp. That's called a bottom feeder. Now, some people prefer to actually release the blade from the bottom clamp, lift the upper arm up with the blade, and then feed the blade back down through the wood. That sounds more convenient, and a lot of people swear by it. I've never been a top feeder because I got started as a bottom feeder and I just got used to it. But this machine, if you are a top feeder, would be a bit of a problem, and I'll show you why here in a minute. And look at the orientation that I have this right now. When you go to insert this blade into this clamp, you have to get the orientation of the blade right, which is an unusual technique for me because I'm used to doing this so much different. But once I got used to doing this 3 or 4 times, it became obvious. But keep in mind, this is the bottom of the blade. So as you know, on a scroll saw blade, the teeth should be pointing down, and the thumb screw goes on the right side of the clamp. So to get this orientation right, you want the blade with the teeth facing this direction, with the thumb screw on the right and the teeth pointed down. Okay, and once you do it 1 or 2 times, it becomes obvious. But it took me, you know, a couple of times to look at it and say, "Oh, I got to figure out how to do this." When you get the blade in the clamp, this little hole right here is where you actually tighten the blade. So you just slide the blade in, kind of finger tighten it, put it up here in this little wrench, built-in wrench, and then tighten it. Now, this seems like a lot of problem or a lot of trouble, and I was concerned about this bottom clamp when I was looking at the machine online. But I will give you kind of an initial opinion here on this. This actually works really well. It's not as cumbersome as it looks, because you actually, if you're a bottom feeder like I am, you only use this bottom clamp when you need to replace the blade. And if you're using a good quality blade like a Pegasus blade or a Flying Dutchman, you know the blades last a long time, relatively to other brands of blades. So you're only going to take this bottom blade out, or this bottom clamp out, occasionally. So I didn't find it to be much of a problem in my initial use of the machine. And again, here I am just tightening up this blade into the clamp. And there again, obviously, I'm showing the orientation of the blade with the teeth pointing down, the thumb through on the right, and the teeth pointing this direction. They did include 2 extra clamps, bottom clamps, with the package. This is nice because you could have a number 3, a number 5, and a number 7 blade all set up and just switch back and forth, which is something I rarely ever do, but I might consider doing it more often with the extra clamps here basically already set up with a blade. We'll see how, and again, once I get a chance to use the machine for a few hours, we'll do another video and I'll give you a more thorough opinion on what I think about this clamping system. Okay, now here's where I kind of want to stop for just a minute, because after I got the saw out and roughly put together, it was time to build the stand for it. And I highly recommend that you buy the stand with any scroll saw that has one made for it, because they really do reduce the vibration of the machine. And it's possible to build a stand that will minimize vibration, but most of the DIY stands that I've seen built really aren't adequate for vibration control. But now this stand, and the reason I took all these pictures, did not come with instructions. Now I don't know if they were just left out of my box or what the deal was, but I had no instructions to build this stand. I've built so many of these things that I wasn't too worried about it, but I'm going to go through a few pictures here and show you a few things that you had to look at twice to understand. First of all, these small risers, you can tell that I've got it in the top hole because I want the stand as high as possible. You can put these risers on where the 2 front ones are lower than the 2 back ones. In other words, you'd put the screws for the bolts for the front down here, maybe in this hole or this hole, and then the screws in the back in the upper holes, and that way you could lean your table forward a little bit. I ended up just putting them all the same. I may go back and change that. It just depends. After I use the saw for a while, what I think about it. These long pieces, which are the legs of the stand, have a top and a bottom, and it's a little bit hard to see here, but if you look at this leg right here, and here's another leg, you can see that this piece right here is squared off and this piece is actually in a V. And I know that's hard to see in this picture, but trust me, there's the ends are different. You want to put the riser on the outside of the piece that's straight. In other words, the bottom of this is straight, and this is in a V shape. Here you can see, let me go back one picture. If I go back to here, you can see this one's straight, this one's V. Now I flipped it around straight and straight, and I think you can see better here that this is now straight. So I'm going to put the next riser on this one. So if you take a look right here, you can see I've got all 4 of the risers on all of the legs. The V-shaped ends of these long legs is up here at the top. Okay. Now the way I build stands, and like I said, I've built a lot of them, is I build the 2 side assemblies, the left and the right leg assemblies, individually, and then I join them together, and I'll show you that here next. Okay, here's, we'll call this the right leg assembly. In other words, this is the front of the machine, and this is the back of the machine, and this piece, this way would be on the right side. So I put the 2 spacers, obviously, with the short. Now let me back up here, and this is a little confusing. There's the upper braces and the lower braces, and obviously there's going to be 4 of each. The braces that go on the left and the right side are longer than the braces that go right here on the front and the back. In other words, there'll be braces coming up here that'll go to the other leg assembly. You want the longer braces on the left and the right side. Okay, same with the upper. Even though these are shorter, there's 4 of them, and 2 of them will have these holes in it to attach the saw to, and 2 of them won't. The 2 that have the holes in them go on the left and the right side, and the plain ones, the shorter ones, go here. And I'll show you that here in just a second, a little closer. So here's one leg assembly, completely built with the braces attached to it. Now again, when you do this, you can tighten these screws down because they don't really matter much, but as you're building this, leave all these screws just finger tight, little more than finger tight. So here I go, I've installed the braces, and I've got the other leg assembly sitting down here, and you'll see in a minute I'm going to throw it over on its top and then install the other brace assembly. So you do need to pay attention to which one of these assemblies has which size. You're building basically a flat top pyramid. Here you can see I've flipped the completed side over on its top, and there I've attached the other side to it. Again, all these were left finger tight at best. I've set it down to get this top flat on the table, and now I'm going to go back and tighten all the bolts. Now you do want to make sure you get these bolts tight. I've seen a lot of situations where a scroll saw was showing a lot of vibration and people were confused why, and it would just simply be that some of these bolts weren't tight. I've seen that happen more than once. So systematically go around the top and the bottom and make sure they all get good and snug. Okay, I have now placed the saw on top of the stand, and these little rubber grommets, again, I didn't read the manual, but I'm assuming they are anti-vibration grommets, and they go between the feet of the scroll saw and the top of the stand. So I'm going to actually lift this saw up and slide this rubber grommet in between there. These screws that mount, or bolts and nuts that mount the saw to the stand, were not in my package. I actually ended up having 2 sets of the leveling casters, but I did not have these screws. Luckily I had plenty around, so it wasn't a big problem. But if you also don't get these screws, you may have to find something. I keep saying screws, they're bolts, nut and bolts. So anyway, at all 4 corners you want to tighten these down good and tight. Okay, a couple other things here to look at. I did get the magnetic base light from Seyco, and it's an LED light. It seems to be plenty bright enough. It's small, it stays out of the way. I have no problem with it. Nothing special about it that I've found other than the fact that it's LEDs, and hopefully they'll last a long time. But it worked fine. I mounted it right here on the side of the machine. Of course, you can't put it up here on the plastic. It has to be down here on the metal. Here is the foot switch that I got from Seyco with the machine. If you don't use a foot switch with your scroll saw, I highly recommend it. It's just a much easier way to maintain control while you're doing your cuts. And here's a little something we can kind of see from this angle right here. This is the table of the scroll saw, and this slot right here they added because when you put that bottom clamp in that we showed you earlier, and I'll show you a better picture of that here soon, you can actually just pivot the blade up through this slot right here into the upper clamp. And I'll have a video here in a minute that I'll show you how that works a little better also. But I still haven't made up my mind what I think about this. The installing the blade, it's great for that. It did seem to be nice and level, but I'm going to have to use it for a while to make up my mind that I'm not going to have any catches right there, or it actually becomes more of a nuisance than an advantage. So I got to take some time, and we'll look at that in the next video. Here is the machine totally assembled up on its stand. Very nice looking machine, very heavy. Like I said, it's a 90-pound machine. When I ran this machine setting up on the workbench, I had vibration at probably the higher 25% of the speed. I was a little worried, but I've done this enough to know that until you get it mounted to the stand, you never know what the vibration is going to be like. Once I got it mounted to the stand with the anti-vibration grommets underneath here, I could turn it up all the way. The vibration was minimal. I did have a little bit of a rattling, and I think it was this plastic, because when I reached up here and grabbed it, it went away, and then it didn't come back. You will notice that when you turn this thing all the way up and you're running the machine with no wood at the blade, it vibrates a little bit more. It's not bad, but a little bit more than when you actually start cutting. The process of getting the wood into the blade seems to dampen the vibration, which was minimal anyway. And the reason it's so minimal is this table right here is very heavy and sturdy. So that cuts down on the vibration quite a bit. You can also see that the table has these vacuum holes in it for dust removal. There is a dust port underneath the table right here that you can attach a shop vac to. I don't generally use dust collection on a scroll saw, but if you need to, it does have dust collection available. In the next video, when I do a more thorough review, we'll hook one up and see what the results of it are. Okay, I've got a piece of wood on the table. Basically, I just cut a couple little puzzle pieces out. The cut was very smooth. I was impressed with the power of the machine. It's a quality cut. I did just throw the blade that came with this, the scroll saw in there, which was probably a crappy blade. So again, when we get to the more thorough review in the next video, I'll put in some higher quality blades, and we'll cut for a little while in thin wood, thick wood. We'll even try spiral blades and everything. We need to test this upper clamp. My first impression of it was fine. It seemed to hold very well. Nothing ever slipped. But I was just cutting 3/4 inch pine, so not much of a test. We'll get some very thick wood in here, and we'll make sure this blade clamp doesn't slip. I think I might have mentioned this already, but basically when you flip this lever over, this piece comes down and it actually releases tension between these bearings, and that's what lets the blade come out. So when you move this back up and that pinches in there, I think it's tighter actually than most of the thumb screw type clamps. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, the clamp that was already in the machine when I got it, the thumb screw and the set screw in the clamp were adjusted correctly, so I didn't have to do anything to it. But the two extra clamps they provided, this set screw right here was backed out, and that doesn't work, because when you put the blade in this hole right here, this part of the thumb screw and the other end of this set screw need to meet right in the middle. So this, as you can see, the set screw is backed all the way out. So I needed a 3mm wrench, or I'm sorry, a 3mm Allen and a 10mm wrench to get this thumb screw, or this set screw, in the right place. So that's what I'm doing here. You can see now when I move this thumb screw in, I've got it stopped right in the middle of this hole. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this wrench on the clamp and the 3mm Allen, and I'm going to screw this Allen in until it touches the tip of that thumb screw, and that will center the blade, which is very important. Okay, so there's everything I want to show you in the pictures. I do have one video here that I want to show you real quick, and I'll probably pause through this here a little bit. Let me make sure I'm all the way backed up here. I think I am. Okay. Here is a picture of the upper clamp assembly. You can see the blade is tight. You can see there's no thumb screw here. When you lower this tensioning lever, it actually releases the clamp, or the blade, from the clamp, and you can pull it out. When you want to put it back in, again, I'm trying to do this one-handed, which isn't the best. It actually pulls this piece up through these bearings, which clamp the clamp together. And the very small amount of time I've used it, this clamp has worked fine. It's very convenient. If we don't have any slipping problems, I really like this system, because it takes that whole problem of that thumb screw, which so many of us with arthritic hands struggle with so much. It takes that out of the loop, which I think is great. So again, we got to spend some time with it to make sure this clamp is as is as durable as I hope it is, and we'll have to find out what the wear points are on this. Another thing here is you don't have the smaller thumb screw tips touching this blade, so I'm hoping it's actually a more positive clamp. We'll find out. So far it looks good though. Let me move through this. You can see that the blade's totally tight again. And now what we're going to do is take a look at the front. And again, I'm holding the camera with one hand and using the other. But you'll see this piece through this shaky video moves down, and then once it goes out of these bearings, it actually spreads this apart and lets the blade come out. So that's how it works, and you can see it's spring loaded. Now here's the bottom clamp, and it's just clipped in here with this metal clip. I'm going to pause this again. One concern that I have, but I can't justify yet because we just got to take some time, is will this small metal clip wear over time and lose its ability to hold that bottom clamp in. You can see it's just on there with 2 screws, so this might be a part that we need to keep on hand in case it ever wears out. I'll probably order a couple of these just to have them, but you could see there, to take this bottom clamp out, you simply just push down on these tabs. You can actually just grab it and pull it out. Let me back up here a little bit. You can see, back up again. You can see when I grab it, I'm doing it one-handed, and I didn't push down on those little clips with both hands very well, so the left one didn't come undone. It's actually easier when you're using both hands and not holding the camera. You could also see there on that bottom clamp when I took it out, it still had some of the lubrication grease on it, and so you might want to make sure you clean that off too. I did after I took this video. And again, here's this lower clamp with the blade and everything removed, and these are those 2 metal clips. Actually, it's 1 metal clip. It's just split that holds that in there. And then when you get ready to put it back in, it's just a reverse process, and once you get it clipped in there, then you just turn it, and you can see that the blade goes up through that slot up there, and it's ready to be put back into the top clamp. So again, my initial impressions of this are very good. It's a very easy clamping system. I was a little concerned about the bottom clamp and how I would like that, but looks good so far. So there is my unboxing, put together video of the Jet 22-inch scroll saw. Sometime, like I said, hopefully this weekend, I will spend quite a bit of time cutting on this machine, and I'll come back with a little bit more in-depth review of it with more video. But so far, so good. I like it. I'm Steve Good. I hope that you find this helpful. And again, this video was sponsored by Seyco. Take a quick trip over to Seyco.com and take a look at what the scroll saw specialists have to offer. Have a good one.